Welcome to the second lecture on the basic statistics series. In this particular session, we're going to talk about measures of central tendency. Specifically, we're going to talk about mean, median, mode. So these are all measures of central tendency, and as the term suggests, central tendency talks about figuring out what is the center of any particular variable, what is the central value, what is that particular value of the variable which best gives us an idea of the range or the weight of that particular variable, if I can use that term. An example of this could be, let's say I want to calculate in this car sales data set. I've got the horsepower of each of these models in my data set. So what is the average horsepower of the cars in my particular data set, or what is the median horsepower, or what is the mode horsepower, right? And similarly, I can try and figure out, what should be the mean mileage per car. And if I want to do a little bit more analysis, I could figure out what is the mean mileage of Audis versus BMWs, or which particular model or which particular manufacturer tends to put more horsepower in their particular car, right? So for all of this, I need to calculate the central tendency. Now, the central tendency term that we are most familiar with is typically the mean or the average value. And to calculate the average value, I don't need to cover this, but we would have already know it. We simply add up all the terms in that particular variable. So for example, I would add up everything in column H and then divide by the count of observations I have in that particular data set. That would give me the average value. In Excel, it's very easy to calculate descriptive stats. I simply put in the formula. I select the whole variable in one shot, and I get the average horsepower. So the average horsepower of this particular data set is 185 horsepower. If I want to calculate the average mileage, I can simply drag the selection over to the mileage column, and I get the average mileage is 23.85 miles per gallon, and so on. Now, if I want to calculate the average manufacturer, right? So we've got manufacturers such as Audi, Buick, BMWs, Cadillacs, etc. Can I actually calculate what is the average manufacturer in this particular data set? And it doesn't compute. Now, there's a reason why it doesn't compute. Now, horsepower, if I want to classify it as the kind of variable it is, it's a ratio scale variable. That means it's got direction, it's got magnitude. I can actually do operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division on this. But I cannot do similar mathematical operations on the manufacturer variable. And we've covered this in our previous lecture. Because manufacturer is a categorical variable, it's a nominal scale variable. There is no direction, there is no magnitude. I cannot do an operation such as Acura plus Audi, or a BMW minus Buick, or if I add up Buick, Cadillac, and Audi and divide by Acura, it's not going to give me anything meaningful. If there is no direction, if there is no magnitude, I cannot calculate the average value on that particular variable. So this kind of restricts the operations or on the kinds of variables mean can be used on. And if you look at this particular table, we can use mean only on variables which are interval or ratio scale variables. That means they must have direction, they must have magnitude. I should be able to plot them on a vector scale, or I should be able to convert that data set onto an n-dimensional graph. That's the only way I'll be able to calculate the mean of a variable in the strictest sense. But how do I talk about the variables on which we cannot calculate mean? Is there some other measure of central tendency that we can use? And there are obviously other measures of central tendency. So we've got median and mode. So how do we actually calculate the median of a variable? Median means the center point of the variable or the 50th percentile observation. By 50th percentile, it means figuring out the observation from which half of the data set is above that and half of the data set is below that. And if I want to calculate the median value for, let's say, horsepower, so I know this particular data set has got about 153 observations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort this data set by horsepower. and it doesn't matter while calculating the median of the variable. You can sort smallest to largest or largest to smallest. It is the same thing. So I'm going to calculate largest to smallest. So if I have got 153 observations, so what should be the middle observation? It's very simple. I'm going to simply divide 153 by 2. So it gives me 76.5. So it doesn't mean anything, right? I'm going to go and jump to the 77th observation. So let's go. So over here I've got the 77th observation. So I have, from this particular observation, I've got 76 observations in which the horsepower is greater than the 76th observation. Then I've got another 76 observations which are lesser than that. So now 175 is actually repeating across multiple observations, so it doesn't matter which particular one that I choose, but I'm going to stick with the 77th observation, which is row number. Since incidentally on Excel it will be row number 78 because we've got the header row, right? At this point in the data set, half of the observations are greater than equal to this particular number and half of the observations are less than equal to this number. This is the 50th percentile, right? So the median horsepower is going to be 175. So let me get back the average value over here. So average horsepower is 185, but median horsepower, and I hope it comes out to be 175, otherwise it will be a pain to edit this video. There it is. No reason it shouldn't have been, but it's always nice to see Excel agreeing with you. So median horsepower is 175. So if you observe, for calculating the median, we do not need to do any mathematical operation except sort the data set. And to sort any particular data set, what do we need? I don't need magnitude, I only need direction. Therefore, in a ordinal scale variable, right, can I calculate median? In ordinal scale, if you remember in the class, we've got direction. Sorry, I meant to go to the smooth draw. Yeah, so we've got direction but no magnitude. Therefore, if I have a variable which goes from, let's say, very low, low, high, so let's say low, medium, high, and very high. So this particular variable would have direction, but it will not have magnitude. So I can't do very high minus high is equal to low. It makes no sense. So this particular computation cannot be done, but I can always sort an ordinal variable. If I can sort a particular variable with any which makes sense in some way, then I can calculate the median of that variable, right? So can I calculate the median for manufacturer, right? Again, that would imply that I need to sort this particular data set in some manner, and sorting by alphabetical order does not imply anything, right? So just because A is higher than L doesn't mean Audi is going to be larger or smaller than Lexus in any meaningful way, either in price or whatever manner that we want to use it for, right? Sorting in alphabetical order does not allow you to calculate the median value in any way, right? So I still cannot use median on categorical variables, but I can use it on ordinal variables. For example, in the student data set, right, we have a variable called socioeconomic background, which is high, medium, and low. So we can sort the data set by socioeconomic background, right? If we can sort it, we can calculate the median socioeconomic background, right? But we cannot calculate the mean gender. It would make no sense. We cannot calculate the median race or mean race. It would again make no sense, because ethnicity, even though it has been recoded, and we've covered this, recoding a nominal variable does not give a direction or magnitude. Recode is simply a database concept to make storing data easier. It does not mean because we've recoded as 1, 2, 3, 4, they don't represent numbers, right? So 4 minus 3 is actually 1, but white minus African American does not give us a Hispanic. That makes no sense, right? So that was median. One quick clarification: if you have a odd number of rows, it's always easy to pick out the middle value. For example, if my data set has got 11 observations, I simply pick up the sixth observation when I sort it in any particular manner. In that way, half of the data set is greater than the sixth observation, half of the data set is less than, say, the sixth observation, i.e., 5 above, 5 below, and say the 11th observation is in the middle. But what happens if we've got an even number of observations? For example, if I had only these 10 observations, then how do you calculate the median? Because if I pick up the fifth observation, then I've got basically 4 above and 6 below. That again, sorry, 4 above and 5 below. So that won't help me in calculating the median. In case of an even number of rows, we pick up the middle two observations and take the mean of those two. For in this particular case, if I have 10 observations, I'll pick up the fifth and sixth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this is the fifth, this is the sixth observation. So I'll take the two observations and I'll calculate the mean of that value. So for example, if I want to calculate the median, and I've got only these 10 observations, I'm going to go all the way till row number 11, right? And you'll see that the median is 301, whereas the median value does not occur anywhere naturally in this data set. There's 302 and there's 300. So the formula has automatically calculated the mean. So it's not the best particular usage because we are still calculating the mean, but there's no way around it if you have even number of observations. So one quick fix is either you pick up any of the two middle ones, or if it's possible, you take the mean of the two middle observations. If you have an odd number of rows, it makes no problem at all. So again, we have covered the Excel formula. We simply use the median option and we're on our way. So you can select any particular variable, right? Again, using the median the median formula on a nominal scale variable would make no sense, right? So we move on to the third measure of central tendency, which is the mode. Now mode is very interesting. As you can see, it can be used across all kinds of variables irrespective. So it can also be used on nominal scale variables or categoric. So how is mode calculated? Mode is nothing but the value which occurs the most often. For example, I'm going to use this data set and I'm going to simply pivot out the columns, right? More specifically, I'm going to pivot out manufacturer, right? And I'm going to calculate the frequency against each of these observations, right? So you can see all the observations, we've got 153 total observations, and the column B tells me how many times does Ford occur in the data set, or how many times does Dodge occur in the data set. I'm going to sort this pivoted out table by the count of manufacturers, largest to smallest. I figure out that Ford occurs the most commonly, or not most common, I would say the repeats the most often in the data set. Therefore the mode manufacturer is Ford, and if I